Whenever we
You're
set
live.
the use, you can call your guard.
So
Oh, no, that's fine.
if I can break in, we are going live again. Given the conversation that we had just before, we broke.
Yeah.
Chris, Ruth is here from Joint Fiscal to, address the issue of 2 versus 4 from a very high level. And, we will get something more detailed in email form from Logan later this afternoon, but I asked Chris to come in and just address from a high level what the issues that they saw are.
Sure. For the record, Chris Burke, Joint Fiscal. It's nice to see you all. I haven't been here yet this year, I don't think, or maybe once, but yeah, I was watching your hearing earlier this morning and I ran into the chair in the hallway. So I just wanted to come in real quick and just sort of repeat for the committee what I shared with the chair the other day, that we have not seen this proposal in Joint Fiscal until you all saw the language. So there has not been time to do a detailed data pool from DMV or anything like that. But at a high level, operators licenses, as you know, are issued on a 2 or a 4-year cycle. Between the two of them combined, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about 150,000 licenses a year that are issued. It is not an insignificant source of revenue for the transportation fund. At a high level, if you were to shift everybody to an 8-year license off of the current, you would have a increase in revenue in the next couple of years, and then a significant drop off in revenue in the last 4 years because nobody would be renewing their license. So you're essentially setting the transportation fund up for a fiscal cliff that would be in the millions of dollars a few years in the future. So again, to do a very detailed estimate, we would need to have a data pool from DMV that details how many operators licenses are out there, which ones are 2-year versus 4-year, and which years they're all going to expire. And the time frame we're in does not provide us the opportunity to do that kind of analysis. This is something that would take us several weeks to do with advance notice, but I can tell you at a high level that shift, absent other changes, will create a fiscal cliff in future years. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Which is, and the concern because we moving ahead with some extension to 4 years because we already have 4-year licenses would be a lot less than if we went.
And most people are already on the 4-year. And I just want to mention to people that I want to remind the committee of the fiscal situation in the transportation fund that hundreds of thousands of dollars or small millions might not seem like a lot of money in the big picture, but the revenue forecast is expecting anemic revenue growth in the transportation fund. Every year in the forecast, revenues are expected to grow by less than 2% over the prior year at a time when inflation and the cost pressures across the board are greatly exceeding that. So every dollar matters in the transportation fund right now, given that reality. So
I want you to know I've been trying to remind this committee.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chair.
Almost every day. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Mr. Roop. It's really good to see you. I would say, obviously, the reason I brought this language forward was not because I wanted to create a fiscal cliff, but because trans Vermonters are frightened by the changes that they're seeing at the federal level with the inability to renew their federal ID. So protections that are granted to them to have a longer period of time where they don't need to renew their ID would give them peace of mind and potentially safety. Literal safety, where they can access things that their ID at a federal level when they can't renew because their gender markers don't match or don't have proper documentation to show that their gender markers match would be taken away from them. So the reason I introduced that language was not anything beyond the necessity and desire to protect a very vulnerable group of people. So I respect what you're saying. And sometimes I do think we extend the desire for fiscal certainty over the value of peace of mind for citizens who are in extremely vulnerable positions. So I just wanted to make that point. But I appreciate that you came to the committee to tell us, because I kind of heard like swirling that there was disagreement. And it was like, okay, well, I'd love to hear the disagreement. And I think it's actually not as, I would say the other 2 points is this was a bill that was introduced on the House side before the deadline. I understand you don't do fiscal notes on all bills that come out,
do
so
not.
I completely get that you did not have the ability or time to look at
Nor was
it.
one requested.
Okay, sure. That's a fair point. I had sent the language well over 3 weeks ago to this committee to have us review it and have waited to kind of get it in the queue to talk about. So I understand that it would have taken weeks. I would have hoped that maybe when I first brought the language and there had been raises of concerns that we could have addressed it. But I'm willing to not move forward with the language based on your reflections, because I do think it's true that we shouldn't set forward any proposals that have, well, a short-term fiscal positive could have a long-term dip in the future. So we do have new language around early renewal that the chair worked on separate from the committee that would extend or allow for the renewal of a license for the 4-year period now. So what I've heard from my trans constituents is they don't want to wait to renew because their birthday might be in, their renewal period might be 2027. And they're very concerned that in 2027, they will not have access to proper licensure, that the federal government, like they've done with passports, would be taking away their ability to use their current documentation. So they would like to renew now to give them the ability to go outside of the federal administration currently in place. And ideally at a time, they would then be able to get proper identification. So I'm willing to accept that. And I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit to, in either case, it's true that not everyone would choose to renew in 8 years. But we do have a smaller subset of people who would be considering asking for early renewal. And I'm wondering if you could speak to the fiscal impacts of the new language that the chair drafted, which would just allow folks now at any point to renew.
So I have not
At 4
seen,
years.
I have not seen the language, so I'm not prepared to make a detailed comment on it. I can say my understanding is most people are currently on the 4-year operator license. Relatively few are on the 2-year license. And, in my perfect fiscal world, everybody would pay every year because that'd be nice and stable and easy to predict. But, as a general matter, I think the shorter and more compressed the time frame, the less the risk there is of your revenues wildly fluctuating and having several years where you might have that revenue really, really drop off. And that is my concern. I just want to reiterate that joint fiscal does not disagree with the legislature or your bills. We will flag fiscal concerns for you all to be mindful of, but I don't want the issues we raised either today or with the chair previously to be construed as us disagreeing with what the legislature is setting out to do. Our job is to sound the alarm if there could be a fiscal issue that you need to pay attention to.
Yeah, and I think that for me and my morals, I'm okay with a fiscal impact when it protects a vulnerable group of people like this, but I also respect that that may not be the case in every situation. So I just let me dig in one more time on the early renewal piece. Do you see a fiscal impact of, for example, a large group of people who say, wow, I am really concerned that I need to renew now. So they're renewing early. They're getting a prorated amount is the way the language looks, so that they're paying for 4 years. But if they've got 3 years left, they're only paying. You get.
So I haven't seen the language, so it's hard for me to have a detailed.
Okay, we'll wait for Logan then. But I guess I'm just trying to get the point that prorating stuff usually doesn't have a major fiscal impact.
Because I guess it depends on what you're prorating and what it is. I mean, the devil's always in the details, so.
I think need to, and I know you need to be, and I thank you for coming in and, I don't know what the legislature would do without the joint.
Oh,
Appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
All right,
He warmed it up for you.
you did. I just gotta get my. Have the pleasure of having Chris in here to or in the seat along with me several times the last couple of days, so that's been really good.
So for the record, I'm Damon Leonard from the Office of Legislative Counsel. I think the first agenda item that on the agenda for is the S66 amendment. Is that where you'd like to start, Mr. Chair?
I think that would be good for us to do that.
Okay. So you should all have a copy of the amendment in front of you, I think.
Yep.
And so what I've done is I did it as a strike all amendment of S66, making the modifications that we discussed yesterday. So I'll walk you through the amendment quickly and take any questions, and we can make additional changes if necessary. So section 1 is the same as section 1 in the original bill. However, we've taken out a couple of things. We've taken in subsection B1, line 13, we deleted the reference to other device that would amplify the sound of the exhaust, because there was a question about how you would identify that necessarily and know whether a device is doing that or if it's just cosmetic. Then we've left the motorcycle requirements the same as they were in B2. And in B3, we've left the exception for races and contests the same as they were. And then what used to be subsection, no, I think, yeah, I think this used to be D. Here, this is basically saying that a motor vehicle shall not pass inspection if it does not meet the requirements. And same with the motorcycle. We've taken out the civil penalty and just remind myself what the other piece was that we took out there.
You took out the exhaust,
Right, the exhaust fumes, the coal rolling language.
which I think was why we also, you took it out with the one.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what's been taken out on section 1. Section 2, this is the engine compression brakes or Jake brakes. The requirement for a muffler is the same in A1. The exception for emergency use of an unmuffled Jake brake is the same in A2. In B, it's the same requirement that a truck could not pass inspection if it does not have a muffler for its engine compression brake. C, the definition of engine compression brake device is the same. D, the language permitting a municipality to adopt ordinances prohibiting the use of Jake brakes in certain areas is the same. We have taken out the civil penalty though. In section 3, the rulemaking, this requires the department to adopt rules on or before July 1, 2026 to implement the provisions of sections 1 and 2. Unless extended by the Legislative Committee on Administrative Rules. And that process is really if they get to the end of their 8-month rulemaking period, they can request that LCAR extend it for good cause.
Is that different than other times, or is that just normal procedure?
So they have to have filed the rule and then they have 8 months from when they file it. And this is normal for anyone who files a rule. Generally, LCAR will only extend it for good cause.
Just what I'm asking is it normal that I don't remember other times when you ask people to do rules that we say unless extended by LCAR.
So that's language that Anthea started adding, and which now that I've been working with LCAR, you don't need to have it. But I've been mirroring what Anthea.
So they can do it now, but this just reminds people that they have the opportunity.
But she's been adding this language for a while.
She started adding it in the last couple of years, yeah.
Okay.
And I think
She hasn't been here for a few years.
she was here last year.
The beginning of life.
Yeah. So but the yeah, this really comes out of, I'm guessing, confusion for agencies that had a date certain, but then ran up against their 8-month deadline for whatever reason. Delays happen sometimes in the rulemaking process. We just approved an extension this morning because the attorney who was doing the rulemaking had to take a family medical leave.
So LCAR has to
So,
make
yeah.
a determination of whether it's a good reason or not.
LCAR makes that determination, yeah. The extensions are usually approved. Sometimes there's pushback though about the amount of time that's requested or the reason it's requested. I have seen LCAR push back strongly when there is no good reason for the extension. So
That's my worry here.
yeah. So you could take that language out though. Shall adopt amendments. They could still request the extension. The legal authority to grant that becomes a little bit cloudier when you've got a date certain. And I think that's why Anthea started adding this. Unfortunately, she's not here to get clarification from. So, but I've been putting this in all of the date certain rulemakings that I've been drafting since I took over LFR. So, and then the public outreach campaign regarding prohibited exhaust modifications and the requirements for engine compression brakes is required in subsection B. It shall include information on the provisions in the inspection manual related to those provisions, including the amendments adopted. And the department is required to begin disseminating the information not later than 2 months prior to the effective dates of sections 1 and 2 of this act. So that would be May 1st of 2026. And you could just replace that with that reference with the date. I actually took this language from something that Anthea drafted last year and just reused it for this purpose. So I prefer dates. I'm not sure why she preferred references to the effective dates. Maybe because it meant less to update when the bill changes. And then shall disseminate the information through email, bulletins, software updates, and the DMV website. So, and this is based on your window tinting language in the motor vehicle bill. It's actually essentially identical, except for the subject matter.
Just a quick question. Sure. Is our standard 2 months before something goes into effect? That seems like a tight window for the public, for people who might need to do something.
There is no standard for these public outreach campaigns. We've seen a variety of them. One thing to keep in mind is that the rulemaking will also be pushing up at that point, and if there are late changes in the rules, this prevents them from having to put out a public outreach campaign and then put out corrected information.
Sure.
Potentially. So I think,
And I'm not suggesting
Yeah.
that we change this.
Maybe
Yeah,
a little
Well,
later then. So
That's
they
just
could do, they
something.
could start.
We could do it early. Yeah.
yeah. So if there's like, for example, if they put in a final proposed rule in February, they can begin public outreach in February.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just something I'll want to talk about later.
So the next is another report on motor vehicle noise levels. As you'll remember, you received a first report in January on motor vehicle noise levels and various enforcement techniques. And so this report is more focused on establishing maximum sound levels for motor vehicles and trucks, as you'll see in B. Enforcement of the maximum sound levels, procedures for a person to challenge a determination that they were operating in excess, procedures for a citizen to report a suspected violation of the maximum sound levels, and then including proposals for maximum sound levels in Vermont, which may vary depending on type of vehicle, vehicle weight, and vehicle speed, methods for determining whether a vehicle is operating on a highway in excess of those sound levels, procedures for enforcement, procedures for a challenge to a determination, and procedures for allowing citizen reporting. and a requirement that the report identify any legislative action necessary. So essentially, this is asking the department to take what was, I think, section 3 of the bill and to develop a proposal for it that they think is workable, with more detail around enforcement, and appeals. And I will note the committee was discussing Maine yesterday. I provided that the report shall examine laws and procedures in Maine and other New England states. And that at least keeps it to a locality with just 5 states, which would reduce that. So the report, the rulemaking, and the effective date section take effect on July 1 of this year. The actual requirements for the exhausts would take effect on July 1, 26 to allow time for rulemaking and public outreach before they go into effect. That's it.
Okay. Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Fabian. You listened to what we said and you put it in writing. So
Did my job.
I really appreciate that. At least I feel that everything we communicated, whether or not we all agree on it, it's a different story, but I believe everything we communicated was in here and I greatly appreciate that. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
If the community's ready, I look for, a motion to move the bill.
So,
Go ahead, a second.
yes,
Clerk, could you?
I will call the roll.
Roll.
And the
And
name
this
of
is-
this bill is what? Senate Bill 66 relating to motor vehicle noise exhaust modifications and engine compression rates.
Yep.
Okay.
Draft 1.1.
Okay.
Is rare that I get a 1.1.
No.
On strike all.
That's terrific.
That's
Okay, so Senator White,
Yes.
Senator Harrison is a yes, Senator Purchase.
Yeah.
Senator Brennan,
yes,
Senator Westman.
Yes.
Great, it is 5-0.
Well, thank you so, can I just say,
Orders the
thank you.
Senator from Windsor.
Okay,
and does it need to go?
Up to the clerk's
Yeah,
office.
you need,
No, but it doesn't need to go to finance or budget. It's nothing.
there's no money in it, but the Senate Secretary will make that determination anyway. So,
So that's why you have to take it up.
yeah, I will never say never on those. So there is no money in it, but if the Senate Secretary sees something that triggers the rule,
you
it
can just
may
get
get
the
referred.
impacts, the
Yeah,
revenues of the state.
Yep.
Indirectly.
Okay,
Because I'm gonna be really loud.
these are.
no, this is a good bill.
So, and Laura I just want to say thank you to Laura in particular for bringing this to, I hope that this moves you forward and being able to stay in your home.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Very good experience for me just walking through it. Yeah.
All right, well, I was gonna
This just stays
move
here.
on. We have Damien in the chair and he's you want to move on
Yeah.
to DMV?
and I am double scheduled starting at 11, so.
That's why I want to move with you.
Yeah.
We got the chance and if you could, after that.
Oh,
pick
hey,
up the-
yeah.
All right, so I know you had Logan in here this morning. I was working on other things while he was testifying, so I'm not sure if you made any decisions based on some of the numbers he discussed
We
with you.
haven't formally made any decisions on
Okay.
it. I think we've had information laid out for us. And so I think we're a lot closer to in a position to be able to make decisions about it.
Okay, so starting with the sections that are, as I understand it, still open
Yep.
and being debated, we would start on section 5. This is the replacement registration certificates.
Which
Where
page are you on?
it starts on the bottom of
Yep.
page 8 and the fee is on the page 9.
Yep.
And this would be the allowing an individual to generate a replacement registration certificate from their electronic account for a reduced charge, whether that's no charge or a nominal fee.
Yep.
And so that it's just left as I have it marked as committee is still deciding.
We have, proposals in front of us. We had 6X, which was deals with section 9. We also, I think the easiest thing to do is, yes, this was the last piece that we went through with Logan.
Mhm.
And, I'm a little, I'm looking for feedback about concerns about the individual items in this. Or if we can just give this to Damien and say, or we're ready to go with drafting. In the ballpark. But I'm open for any critique of this to help us get to a place where we can send him out and draft.
I'm good. I do have one question.
Sure.
Because I think on the fiscal note, on the back, section 14. He says estimated revenue generation would be roughly, if DMV were to start collecting this fee, it's 116,000.
Yep.
So I don't know if that 116,000 is in the 353,
No.
that would bring it
It's
down.
not
Oh.
because they've never collected this fee. So
Yeah.
it's not baked into any of
Okay,
the revenue estimate.
okay. I was just hoping it would be even less loss.
Okay.
Okay, but it's still a lot less loss than we started with.
Yes,
Yes,
a lot less than was presented.
yes.
And you got the sheet now?
Senator Brennan just provided it to me. So the one thing I would ask about is the replacement registration certificate that's not on there.
Which is on top and it's out.
Yeah, okay, so that was my question. Is this still,
That
and I know,
would be out,
yes, okay.
and it's the top line on that sheet.
It's okay. Um,
Or, excuse
So
me,
section 5 would be deleted completely. That would, section 5 on the.
so this means that,
yes,
yeah, so the charge will stay $20 for replacement
Yes.
registration certificate,
that's the.
whether you go in person or print it online.
Yep.
Great. Okay, so section 6, 9, and 10. So this is one where we heard more from Department for Children and Families yesterday on this. So there were a series of emails overnight between their staff and myself. And let me just pull up. So, okay, so Amanda Churchill Kipp wrote to me last night. The 150 youth and $15,000 I discussed yesterday did include the population of youth ages 15 to 22 who are or were in foster care and are currently served by our transition and aftercare program. For that reason, she was suggesting language that you'll see in your draft in brackets. And this is language I worked out with her last night. An individual under 23 years of age who was in the care and custody of the Commissioner for Children and Families pursuant to 33 VSA 49034 in Vermont after attaining 14 years of age. So it's a different group than the individual under 18 years of age. My understanding from her email is this is the number of individuals that she provided to Logan, although Logan and I thought that was individuals under 18 years of age
And
instead of this.
so this change would not affect the cost estimates that we got and that Logan would have based his decision.
That's my understanding is he is currently these are paid for spend less than $15,000 annually. The only question I have, yeah, so she does say 15,000. Sorry, I was my brain was juxtaposing the 150 youth and the 15,000. And for a second, I was thinking she said 150,000. Should be significantly more.
Now that would, at this point, no.
Yeah, so according to Amanda, and the email that she sent me last night at 8:24, the fiscal amount would not change, with the different language there. So the question really is whether that language is okay with the committee, on the understanding that it doesn't change.
We have a question from,
So that language on page 10, the highlighted, what's the parenthetical?
The parenthetical is taking the
Parentheses, it's,
brackets. Yeah, the bracketed language takes so the language that's not bracketed is the language we worked on yesterday in
Right.
committee. The language in brackets is the language that I developed last night with the DCF staff to try to encompass the changes that they identified by email yesterday after the close of business.
and
So,
this tries to reflect what we've discussed
right, so,
more
So
clearly.
if you just have the first sentence and then I didn't understand, is it bracketed because it's an alternative language? Or is it
Yes.
bracketed for example?
bracketed as alternate language
You could either have the first sentence or
or the second
you
sentence.
would still keep this and either way. So it's just one of those two sentences.
Exactly.
And one of them is 18 and under in custody and one is 23 and under in custody.
Yeah, 23 and under who was in the care and custody after attaining 14 years of age. So it's just,
Even though it's more people, the dollar amount doesn't change.
it actually is the same.
Not because that's what she gave you the number was.
Yeah.
It will be more people. But
Right.
it's not, the estimate was based on the large.
Yeah.
number.
The estimate was
So-
based on 150.
Okay,
Right. According to her emails last night, the second email she sent me, she
I'm fine.
explained that they provide support after age of 18 to those youth as they're transitioning out of the foster care program.
So you're not gonna say and? Oh, I'm sorry. Like after the 49034?
That would be struck.
Yeah,
The sentence would start with an individual under 20.
an individual. Yeah, so the bracketed language is the
Yeah.
alternative.
Okay, so
So it would replace, so B would now read an individual under 23 years of age who was in the care and custody of the commissioner pursuant to 33 VSA 49034 in Vermont after attaining 14 years of age.
Period.
So period. And that would be the new B.
okay,
So it
so
just,
so this part wasn't highlighted, so that was part of my confusion.
yeah, that was language
Yeah,
that
I know,
didn't
I
change from
know.
yesterday. I'm sorry.
That just the after attaining 14 years of age is kind of weird, but I understand why we have it now. But people reading this are gonna have questions, but I'm fine. It's the last day, it's fine.
So
So they were in the care and custody after they attained 14 years of age.
So they didn't leave.
No, I understand how
Yeah,
what it
Yeah.
is intended to say. But I just think it's gonna be confusing, but
okay.
the people who need to know will know.
And you'll explain to them on the floor.
if you could uncolor this,
Yeah.
bracket this.
It will be in the next draft.
And this, we're done with this.
Great. Okay. So, let's just see, that is good. The fees on, SSI, SSDI.
Yep.
Let's see,
It's
with those, we're
bottom
going with the
of
20 and the 10.
Yep,
Okay, great. I'll close that out. See a number of other instances with the same bracketed language for the foster children. I'll make the updates throughout. There's not a lot that's open in here.
It's 22, the placeholders.
Yeah, so the license extension. So this is what we were just discussing with Chris. And the question here is, you have the side by side that
Yep.
I put together yesterday. So as I mentioned in my testimony yesterday, the language that I presented yesterday can stand on its own, or with any of the language that was presented 2 days ago from Senator White's original proposal. So the question is just, which of the items from that menu would you like to include, and do you want to modify any of them?
Go ahead.
This is the site.
Yep, you got it. I think you could, well, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for doing the side by side. That was really
You're
helpful
welcome.
and it calmed a little bit of my fears. I am not seeing, if I'm reading the room properly, I think I'm the only one who wants my original language. Maybe I'm reading the room wrong, so if you do agree with me, you can let me know. Okay, based on the side.
It had merit, but yes, at this point, whatever. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. Okay, so I'm accepting defeat on that part. But I did want to ask, and I'm totally fine. I'm appreciative of the chair's language, and I think if we are going to move forward, I'd like to see that. But there are two sections that we didn't really discuss in depth, but I think have merit, that don't extend the licenses, but are the report and the outreach section. And that you can see at the bottom, it's on the last page and the back page of that last page that Damien gave us. And I just want to articulate why I was hoping we could see that report and the outreach in there. It's less necessary because it went with the original language, so it doesn't have as much need, but one of the concerns, and I sent it to the entire committee, and it was sent to the commissioner originally. The report is meant to try to understand how we support unhoused individuals. It also, if we don't want to move forward with that, it also looks at how do we have the correct spelling and information around correct spelling and others, like special characters, for example, within DMV, because one of the concerns we heard from constituents was there are folks who are not experiencing that. So I would like that. And I think what we heard from the DMV commissioner, and obviously Mr. Collier is in the room, was that they thought they were already doing this work and that it wasn't, I don't know if it was that the report wasn't necessary, but that this was already happening. So if that is the case, I would hope that we could keep it in. And I do think that outreach is valuable because I do want folks to know that there are, I think we'd have to change it a little bit.
We would.
But
So,
those sections, I think if I give up on my 8-year thing, if we're gonna just allow the language that you have, I would want us to just consider those pieces a little bit further.
can I ask you what you think about the report and think about the outreach?
Sure. Andrew Collier, Commissioner DMV for the record. As far as the report, this is an area that I'm not sure what we're trying to get out of the report, just because we map what we have on the national standard and international standard, which is AMVA. And the way licenses are set with how the names are written out has to be consistent across all states. And there's a character count of the licenses. I know there's some examples of someone's passport may have their full name, whereas we are constrained within the detail of the license to a character count. I'm not sure what the report will get. We can provide information on how the national and international way of doing licenses. More than happy to provide information on that. I'm not sure. I guess I'm just confused what the intent of this report is actually trying to obtain, because we're doing people's legal names. Just understand that the license is going to be so big, and we have so many security details, and they can only fit so many characters within it. So we're not using someone's legal name. I guess that's my concern, is what's being presented is we're not doing something that we are already doing. If that makes sense.
And outreach.
In outreach, as I mentioned, the other day, I guess I'm just confused on what this portion of the outreach we're trying to outreach on. Was it reference the 8-year extension or?
It does.
It does. So the outreach portion would have to change. Number two, obviously, if you're not extending it to 8 years, then that would have to be deleted. So it would become outreach to inform Vermont residents about the right to obtain an operator's license, privilege card, or non-driver identification card. Number three is the right to self-attest with respect to the gender marker on the individual's license, privilege card, or non-driver ID. And then number four would also have to change because there were fee waivers in the proposed language that aren't there anymore. You could still say reduced fees that are available to certain individuals or individuals who meet certain requirements, because we do have the SSI and SSDI reduced fees. And then beyond that, with the rest of it here, there's, just the types of media and then the number of languages. So it requires English and Spanish plus printed materials in those languages and the next 8 most commonly spoken.
If the intent is for us to provide outreach, I think we can do that without having this. I'm going to be honest with you. I think there's a cost associated with the way this is written. We currently have printed material in other languages, and we will do a social media if there's issues or re-up kind of, but the way this is written, to do television, radio, targeted social media posts, that's a significant cost there. I don't know the benefit of that. We help individual people who come into the DMV or who call. We provide those services if they need additional languages or again, my same comment with the report. I don't. These are items we're already doing. I'm not. I guess I'm just missing where the intent of this outreach is really hitting. If that makes sense.
I'm not sure on what draft we're actually looking at.
We're on 7.1.
Yeah, we're looking at.
Oh,
Oh,
it doesn't
that's
have
not-
all
by side,
Yes.
It has the language that I had.
No, but on the study, on the outreach.
It's
Down here.
Oh, it is. Maybe
It's on the bottom.
next page. Okay. Oh, just gotta go to the next.
I think that on the outreach piece, Damien, it would be helpful if you would redraft the language and bring that back to us. When
Okay.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say, I'm not as interested in, the report as I am, people knowing that this is available. And, if you could redraft the language around that, we can come back to both of these issues. I want people to know what the law is, and sometimes I think it's hard for the average person to know that.
So the questions I would have, I'll definitely clarify the scope of the outreach to match what's in the bill. And then with respect to the public service announcements, do you want to change that at all based on the commissioner's testimony, or do you want to leave that for now and discuss more?
I would support taking out 4B and C, where we're very restricted. I think telling them to do a public outreach campaign and trusting that they do that,
Okay.
unless we have information specifically that they're not doing something, but I think the cost of television ads for this and things like that. So, and then also with my understanding is the DMV and other agencies have a language plan. They're required to have one at least, so they should have one. So instead of saying specifically what they should do with the language, I would hate, so we told them to have a language plan, and then if we told that this is different than the language
Mm.
We
plan,
don't want to be different. from-
Okay,
so they would follow their language plan.
so I will.
So I think B and C. And then, but we're still telling them to do a campaign, but not being so prescriptive on what it is.
Okay,
Yeah, that sounds great.
great. I can do that.
Can I ask, I understand what you're saying around the report. I would just ask that if we could possibly have DMV come in and explain what they are doing now. The reason the report is in there is because I was not aware of it, and neither were the constituents of mine who had brought it forward. So if we're gonna get rid of it, I'd love to have testimony, so I have things to answer those points.
I'm all for getting rid of written reports. Because I think we get too many of them and sometimes we don't even read the ones that we've asked for. So we have done in the past where we've just asked for a verbal report to the committee. And that happened this year. So I think, I don't know if we need it in here because it sounds like they have information on these. We just haven't had the time to go through them. So
I think-
after
I think that once we get past this week,
Yeah.
it would be good to schedule the
And then if
commission
we're not-
and the department to come in.
And then if we're not happy with the answers, if we could do something that's email.
Yeah. I will say there, I have heard little birds whispering out in the side, how overworked some of the people in DMV are feeling with staffing and all of that. So another report, I'm a little, but if you could,
I just, when we do talk about the outreach, I would just like to talk about outreach generally.
yep. And I think Megan, if we could schedule,
And it's, for me, it doesn't need to be immediate.
yeah, that could be
Whenever.
next week or the week after, but you know, I'd like to, it would be good to get them in here.
Okay, I will make those changes for your next draft.
Yep.
So just looking through the bill.
On the bottom of your side by side, you have all the language that's on the right. It's
Yep.
still being.
All the language on the March 12th language is in, plus the outreach section, but modified. The next thing that's highlighted is on page 52. This is the rulemaking deadline for the tinted windows. I dated this to just say July 1, 2026 instead of the effective date of section 39 of this act. I felt like that was more clear. You did receive yesterday a request from the department to extend that out to July 1, 2028. So that is out there. I don't know if there's any interest in the committee in extending that, or if you prefer to leave it as July 1, 2026. The original deadline, as you'll remember in last year's window tinting language, I believe was this coming July 1, 2025. Pull that up. That's confirmed.
Yeah,
Did we get a request to go to 28?
You did. That
I
came
think
in.
you got.
I got the request and forwarded it to the committee.
Did you forward to the whole committee?
I did. Let me give you the time that I sent it.
Cause I thought what I saw was, maybe.
Go. At 2:19 yesterday, I said, "Good afternoon, all. Please see DMV's request below regarding the effective date for the window tinting changes." And then the email from Evangeline James said, "Hi, Damien, the commissioner requested that I reach out regarding the effective date for the window tinting sections. Given the fact that DMV will have to engage in rulemaking and there may be other changes in addition to the window tint in the rule, DMV requests the effective date be moved to July 1, 2028. And I'm paraphrasing a little bit.
And that's for the rule, not the actual.
So that the rulemaking and the effective dates for those sections would need to line up. Otherwise, you have a legal requirement out there, but you don't have the actual inspection rules in place to enforce it. So
No.
you're telling You're saying legally you have to fail inspection, but we don't actually have an updated inspection manual. to
The
reflect
inspection
that.
manual is part of the rule.
The inspection manual, yeah, the rule is the inspection manual.
So none of it would go into effect until 2028
That's what they request.
is
That's
when
what they're
they were.
requesting. So what's in the bill is July 1, 26. It's worth noting, we lined up the noise provisions to be consistent with the tinting.
Yeah.
So that is another thing. You've already required them to update the manual in 26 for the noise. So you can always reconsider and amend.
Well, I thought we also heard that, from DMV, when we were talking about the noise, that, just to update the manual was, the time frame given wasn't sufficient, if I recall.
I was not present
Yeah,
for
I
that
remember.
testimony, or I missed it.
I thought they said they'd have a hard time meeting that requirement. Update a manual from now till July 1st,
Of next year.
26.
So
Well, maybe I'm mistaken.
And they should have started, because it was required to do it in 25 July, so they should have started that work with some part of that. And we've been talking about it for 20 years.
So,
I do not support an extension to 28. And
so the commissioner would like to say something, would you like to hear from him? All right.
If 28's too far, I understand that. But the intention, from last year's bill on this, was outreach would begin in 25 with the effective date in July 1st, 26. The trouble with getting started now is we couldn't define the window tinting, so that's why that work got started, which is why we're here asking for the changes happening. So, because we were supposed to have a public outreach starting July 1st this year. So that was the intent of the legislature last year, was that we give enough time to the public to prepare for that change.
you're correct. That was my mistake. It was July 1, 26 for the effective date on the tinted windows. So it should have moved to 27. Unless, I guess you did require a 26. So I didn't move it out a year.
Yeah.
And then your noise is set for 26 as well. So, yeah. So it's up to the committee.
I still support doing the 26. Like you said, if they can't meet it, then they could go to the next extension. The outreach can happen at that time. We didn't get a full year of outreach for the EV infrastructure fee. So and it's a smaller population, I would think. So I think it's, I think it's they won't have as long of time to do outreach, but I think given that we lost a year, we should keep to the 26.
Commissioner has one more statement and then he's done.
Thank you. Apologies. Is there a way just to get direction because I know there's a separate bill with the 26, it costs about $100,000 on the IP side of it to change it. So I'd like to, all I'm asking is if we're going to change the manual, we do it at once as a efficiency aspect.
Yeah.
And I guess how do we proceed if not knowing the outcome of the other bill on this?
What other bill?
So the two bills right now are aligned on the effective date for the rulemaking or the required date. So I think the issue with it is if the rulemaking dates need to change, just make sure they change together. We do always have the option, and I've done this before in other bills, where if one bill, let's say the noise bill sailed through on the House side and passed in sometime in April, and then the motor vehicle bill, the House decided to move out the rulemaking date on tinting, you could add a section to the motor vehicle bill that amends the deadline in the noise bill. And I've done that before as late as the last day of the session on a bill that passed a few days earlier when the two conference committees didn't talk. And you ended up with dates that didn't work. So that is possible to do. We'll just need to continue communicating if the bills move at different paces. But yeah, there's still, the date could still change on the other side too. Even if they don't change here this morning.
Yeah, definitely the goal is to make, only have to do the inspection manual once.
Yeah.
Which sometimes we just want it.
So yeah, right now the dates are lined up. And I will make sure that whenever these bills come up, I mention that if you're updating it, that you should make sure all the dates align.
Right.
If you can put together a draft in, this, I think that's the last piece in this.
I think it
I think
is.
You with the sheet from Logan.
Yeah.
And
I don't see any changes in Logan's sheet. Besides what we just discussed, the clarification on
yeah,
foster care,
taking out.
eliminating 5.
Yes.
And then everything else I think is already in the bill, but I'll touch base with him just to make sure.
We, if we could get a clean draft.
Yep, you will. Is tomorrow morning okay? Or,
Well, I'd like it before then, but.
well, yeah, but is
Can
there,
you get it at 5 minutes of noon today?
That's an hour.
I'm scheduled for testimony up in the house,
Why don't, well.
in a minute.
That's
So,
close.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
I can,
Yeah, what
I
time
can turn
can
the
you,
bill around pretty quick.
what time can you be in here in the morning?
You have me scheduled already at 9 a.m. or 9:15 a.m. I could come in,
9:15, because you have to be across the hall at 9:07.
Yeah, I have to be across the hall at 9.
and I could also come in, as early as 8:30 and then just be late to my scheduling meeting tomorrow.
We, came in at 8:30 and we could, have a clean draft. The plan would be to vote on this at that time.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Do we need him to, or was that O'Grady working on the 50% purchase and use change?
That's in the other bill. That's in, 46.
Right.
And, we will have to get, O'Grady in here,
Okay.
to work that out. But
Got my lawyers.
I'm trying to chug us along and get, and I'd like to be before, 9 o'clock, have this done tomorrow.
Yeah,
And then the rest of, the morning, we, would move into the purchasing steps and try to sort that out.
I'll have a draft of the committee by close of business.
If you could, send that around to all the members, so everybody could take a look at that. And, we'll do a very quick run through of the highlighted issues that were in the morning.
Okay.
Just
Yeah.
very high level, this is this, and you know,
Yeah, there will be very few changes,
yes,
at this point. So the big one will just be adding in that. The only new language will be the, outreach.
Yep.
Great. Okay, thank you for your time. Is there anything else?
well, thank
this
you for
morning?
yours. You've actually been pretty good about this.
Positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
Do you get that from the house?
They bring donuts occasionally.
Oh, all right, well,
Oh, well,
hey,
I,
you can have
you,
half of
you
it.
laid down the, we're gonna have to do
Well,
something.
I was gonna say, donuts they taste great. They're not good for my health.
Yeah.
So it's like that combination of that was delicious and now I'm gonna regret this. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you in the morning.
I think we have,
Are we done? We were very efficient.
I was not, you know, I'm a little shocked. But we're,
I think we did good bills for what it's worth. I mean, I think the noise one, and I think this bill